The insane truth about the three heavens in the Bible that haunts you forever. The night was dark as Doug fumbled through the dusty pages of an ancient Bible he found in his late grandmother's attic. His eyes widened, neck hairs raised. Which written words could hold such terrible secrets? Rumor had it that this very text held the shocking truth about the three heavens, a truth so twisted it could haunt anyone who dared to discover it. Dark clouds danced above his small town, rumbling like a cosmic warning, as flashes of lightning illuminated his face with an eerie glow. But the pages whispered to him, in the first heaven, the sky where angels play, the music is sweet, but the shadows hide stories of despair. His chest tightened. Shadows? What shadows? Engulfed by dread, Doug's fingers shook as he turned to a page marked with a frayed ribbon, revealing a passage detailing how the angelic beings could transform into horrifying creatures if summoned incorrectly. The wind howled outside, echoing his racing heartbeats, and he felt those twisted beings closing in with every tick of the clock. Just when Doug thought he couldn't take it anymore, a wild thought struck him: could the second and third heavens conceal even darker secrets? What horrors lay in wait beyond the clouds, hidden from human eyes? As he continued reading, Doug felt a chill crawl up his spine, a sense of being watched creeping over him. The air thickened. It felt as if the Bible had become a living entity, binding him to secrets he wasn't meant to know. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But that was all. The final passage hinted at a catastrophic prophecy connected to those heavens. Beware, for the third heaven is not a place of wonder, but a pit of desolation. Each word struck Doug like a thunderclap. A pit? What could it mean? His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he realized he had to find out, that he was already in too deep to back out. What awaited him in the coming days would unravel everything he believed about the world, and himself. So why, with such an ominous sense flooding his being, did he feel a dark pull urging him further into the abyss? The following morning, Doug awoke with a start, heart racing, as the remnants of dark dreams clung to him like cobwebs. Shadows danced at the edges of his vision, and the old Bible lay ominously on his nightstand, a silent call to action. He couldn't shake the feeling that last night was just the beginning. He stumbled into the kitchen, the muted light struggling to cut through the heavy clouds outside. His mother hummed softly while preparing breakfast, completely unaware of his inner turmoil. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she remarked, glancing up from the sizzling pan. Doug forced a smile, but his mind darted back to the shadows mentioned in the Bible. What would they want with him? After breakfast, Doug rushed upstairs, intent on uncovering more secrets. He flipped through the pages feverishly, desperate for clarity. In the second heaven, he read aloud, "The veil grows thin between the worlds, granting passage to the awakened. But beware. The blissful faces were malicious intent." Confusion twisted his stomach. How could joy be so deceptive? The sudden jolt of fear sent ripples through him. Could people really harbor darkness behind cheerful masks? He felt the walls close in, and in a fit of frustration, he slammed the book shut. The clouds outside darkened. A rumble shook the windows, punctuating his anxiety with ominous beats. Doug's breath came in sharply as the power flickered, then failed, plunging him into uneasy silence. At that moment, the air shifted. A shiver ran down his spine, and he instinctively clutched the Bible to his chest. His phone buzzed, breaking the stillness. It was a text from his best friend, Tom. "Dude. You have to see this. People are freaking out." Doug's heart raced as he clicked open the link Tom sent. The news story displayed a local incident, a man, reputedly a churchgoer, had been found in the woods, rambling about the truth of the heavens, before collapsing. The idea that these secrets were starting to affect their small town made his stomach twist. Had the man, like him, been searching for answers? Or had he ventured too far into the abyss? Doug's instincts screamed for action. He couldn't ignore the connection any longer. As doubts crept in, he wrestled with whether he should share the truth with Tom. What if he put his best friend in danger? But the fire of curiosity burned hot, driving him to seek clarity, to unravel the tangles of fate laid before him. Putting on his jacket, Doug grabbed the Bible and headed outside. The air felt charged, like the approach of a storm, and he sensed something lurking just beyond the edge of his perception. Shadows flitted between trees, evoking images from his research. It was time to brave the woods, to seek the man's fate or understand the connection that history had laid before him. With each step toward the woods, his footfalls quickened, fear mingling with determination. What awaited him among those trees? Could he unravel the secrets of the heavens before they ensnared him? As he reached the tree line, a piercing scream shattered the tense air, pulling him back to reality. Doug froze, heart pounding in his ears. Was he too late? He peered deeper into the woods, knowing he could not turn back now. The call was too strong. But what he might find there, would it be answers or destruction? Doug stood on the fringe of the woods, breathless. The scream echoed, chilling him to the core, transforming his earlier resolve into a deep-rooted terror. Every instinct told him to run, yet every ounce of curiosity pulled him back. He took a step forward, heart racing, the shadowy silhouettes of the trees looming like sentinels, swollen with dark potential. "Hello." His voice trembled, swallowed by the murky silence. No reply came. Just the rustling whispers of the leaves, mocking his uncertainty. As he ventured deeper, the dim light filtered through the branches, casting eerie shapes on the ground. Each crack of a twig beneath his feet felt like a gunshot in the quiet. The last crunch snapped him back to reality. Ahead, a blur of motion caught his eye. A dark figure flickered between the trees. Doug's breath hitched. He gripped the Bible tighter, a lifeline to hold on to as he fought against the rising wave of fear. "Is someone there?" He called out, his voice stronger this time, but the dread clawing inside him began to drown out his words. He pushed forward, curiosity battling against the instinct to flee. Then he saw it. A man, huddled between the gnarled roots of an oak. He wore tattered clothes, dirt smeared across his face. His eyes were wild, darting like a trapped animal, a horror-stricken glimpse of what could happen if he fell too deep into the shadows. "Stay back!" the man shouted, throwing up a hand as if to ward off an unseen threat. "You don't understand. The truth, it's not what you think." "What truth?" Doug edged closer, unable to resist. "What do you mean?" The man shook his head, a frantic energy radiating from him. "The heavens. They're gateways. They can change you." His voice cracked, a blend of panic and desperation. "They let the shadows through, they feed on our fears, our hopes." Doug's mind swirled. This man knew something that could crack open the mystery he'd been chasing. He stepped even closer, drawn in like a moth to a flame. "What did you see?" The words slipped out, barely a whisper. A rusty laugh escaped the man's lips. "They'll come for you. They'll come for anyone who seeks the light." He narrowed his eyes, as if Doug was already marked. "You think it's all about the quest for answers?" "No. It's a damn trap. You must." The man's voice was cut off by another scream, a raw, uncontrolled sound that ripped through the woods like lightning. And then silence. Doug felt it in his bones, a thrum of fear as the air shifted once more. Shadows seemed to deepen, stretching out around him. The previously inviting woods morphed into something sinister. The reality of the man's madness seeped into his thoughts, lapping at the edges of his sanity. What if the man was right? What if these heavens weren't just religious tales but something far darker? "Where are you going?" Doug's feet moved of their own will. He was already turning to flee, adrenaline thickening his blood as panic set in. He bolted, not knowing where he was running to, only that the woods were transforming, closing in around him. Each step felt heavier, as if he was moving through molasses, shadows clawing at him, begging him to surrender to the unknown. Then, just as he reached the edge of the trees, a chilling voice echoed behind him, reverberating through the air like thunder, "You can't escape the truth, Doug." He spun around, heart hammering, fear paralyzing him. But he was alone. Before he could catch his breath, another scream pierced the stillness, and Doug dashed into the open, desperate to leave the woods behind. His mind raced. Had he crossed a threshold? What awaited him now that he had touched the shadowed truth? Would he ever uncover the mysteries of the heavens, or had he unleashed something far worse? A shadow darted across the sky above him, dark as night, leaving the taste of panic in the back of his throat. Doug's heart thudded hard against his chest. The day was only getting started, and the real terror had yet to reveal itself. What lay ahead? Would he be ready to face what was slowly unraveling around him? Doug stumbled into the clearing, gasping for air, the woods falling silent behind him. There was a weight in the air, an oppressiveness that made every breath feel like a struggle. He scanned the open space, hoping for safety, but the light felt off, flickering like a faulty bulb. The sun hung low in the sky, bleeding oranges and purples that seemed too vibrant against the backdrop of his spiraling terror. A chill crawled along his spine as he caught the distant echoes of that last scream, reverberating in his ears like a chilling symphony. It was a haunting reminder that whatever lurked within the shadows of the trees, they weren't finished with him yet. It felt wrong to be out in the open, yet he pushed forward, each step hesitating, weighed down by the sense that he was being watched. Suddenly, he spotted a figure on the edge of the clearing. A woman, her face pale and expression unreadable, stood frozen beneath a dying tree. Her clothes were tattered, much like the man from the woods. Doug's heart thudded violently. "Are you okay?" he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. She turned, locking eyes with him. Her pupils were wide, glistening with frantic energy. "You shouldn't be here. You have to leave." She took a step forward, hands trembling. "They'll find you. They're drawn to fear." Doug's pulse raced. "What do you mean? Who will find me?" "The shadows," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The heavens, they're not what you think." He could see the torment in her eyes, something beyond mere fear. "What do you know about them?" he pressed, desperation seeping into his tone. "Please, I need to understand." She recoiled as if he had struck her. "Understanding will only lead to more pain." Doug felt an unease settle in his stomach. "But what if I can help? What if I can stop whatever is coming?" A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Help? You think you can help? These shadows are parasites. They feast on misery, and they won't stop until they've devoured everything." Doug felt a sudden chill sweep through him. The blood drained from his face. "What do they want from us?" Before she could respond, another distant wail pierced the air, and the woman's face twisted in horror. "We have to go," she yelled, grabbing Doug's arm. "They'll sense you. We need to find cover." As she pulled him toward a dilapidated cabin at the far end of the clearing, Doug noticed the trees shifting ominously. They seemed to twist and stretch, bending as if alive. The air thickened, laden with a palpable darkness that crawled along his skin. They hurried, their footsteps quickening, the cabin looming closer. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of mold and decay. Shadows clung to the corners like unwanted memories. "We can't stay here long," she whispered, pressing a finger to her lips. "They're already searching for you." He could hear something scraping against the wooden walls, a sound both low and menacing, like fingers sliding across a surface. "What's out there?" Doug's voice trembled, and he hid his hands in his pockets, gripping the worn Bible, feeling its familiar comfort. "Whatever you unleashed when you ventured into those woods," she said, her voice a tremor of fear and sadness. The truth never walks alone. It carries its shadows. An unsettling quiet settled inside the cabin. Doug's breathing felt loud, echoing in the claustrophobic space. A sudden crash shattered the silence. Something was trying to break in. "What do we do?" he shouted, heart racing. The woman turned, terror crinkled on her brow. "We wait until we can't." The shadows around them thickened, pulsing like a living entity. Doug's heart pounded in his chest as he felt the walls closing in. Had he truly unleashed something terrible? What awaited him beyond the cabin walls, and would the woman's warnings prove true? A scratching sound grew louder, mixed with guttural whispers that echoed through the cabin. Doug squeezed the Bible tighter, feeling the weight of destiny upon him. Was this just the beginning, or had he finally crossed the line into a nightmare? The answers were about to be revealed. As the cabin door began to tremble. The door shook violently as if something on the other side was desperate to get in. Doug held his breath, and the woman's eyes grew wider with fear. Each tremor sent a jolt through his body, igniting every nerve ending. He could feel the malevolence outside. It was real and it wanted him. "Is it them? Are they here?" he whispered, barely able to form words. The shadows danced and swirled eagerly, as though anticipating the chaos to unfold. "Yes. We need to barricade it," she shouted, her hands trembling but her resolve painting a fierce determination across her features. She darted toward a rickety old table and shoved it against the door, her breaths coming fast and shallow. Doug joined her, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Every scrape of the wood against the floor echoed like thunder in the vast silence. With his heart hammering in his chest, he pressed his back against the door, straining to hold it closed as if his weight alone could keep the horrors at bay. But there was a growing pressure, a dark weight pushing against him, as if the shadows had taken form and were now testing their defenses. "What do they want with me?" he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. She barely looked at him, her eyes glued to the door. "They feed on fear. Every scream, every keyword you utter, brings them closer. They want to break you down, to drain every last drop of your essence." A scratching sound intensified, claws raking as they clawed at the wood like a ravenous beast. Doug could almost feel the wickedness pooling into the cabin, a twisting darkness that clawed at his mind. Would fear consume him? Think. The Bible, it's an anchor. Use it. She urged, pulling back just enough to glance at him. The fervor in her plea forced Doug to reach into his pocket. The worn pages felt like a lifeline, grounding him in a moment of rising panic. He flipped it open, searching for anything that might offer solace or a way out. Suddenly, the door bucked hard against the table, and Doug was thrown back. He scrambled to regain his footing, the cabin spinning around him as whispers filled his ears, taunting, promising despair. They crept in between the words of the prayer he tried to conjure, filling his thoughts with agony and dread. "No!" he shouted, pushing the chaos outward. "You don't get to win. Speak aloud." The woman urged, her voice breaking through the dissonance. "Let the words come alive." Doug locked eyes with her, a fierce determination igniting in his chest. Words spilled out of him, a desperate invocation of passages he barely remembered. As he recited them, light flickered from the pages, illuminating the shadows and pushing against them. It felt like a fight, a fierce wrestling match with darkness itself, but just as hope began to swell, the door slammed violently, splintering further. "They're not going to let up. Hold on!" she screamed, her voice barely breaking through the chaos. More than before, Doug could feel the urgency, the terror clawing at their souls. "Help me!" he managed to scream, his voice raw as the shadows thickened into solid forms on the other side, and then, a deep, guttural growl emerged, promising chaos. The shadows shifted, forming grotesque shapes, circling back as a howling wind rushed through the cracks. Doug felt himself falter, fear creeping back. What if this isn't enough? He whispered, dread sinking into his bones. In that moment, the woman's hand shot out, grasping his. It's not over until we say it is. There's more power in a united heart, but it's yours to wield. Doug hesitated, the weight of doubt crippling, but he felt her strength seep into him. They didn't have much time. What do we do? He gasped, the shadows inching ever closer. Open your heart to the truth. The shadows will betray their weakness. She urged, the light flickering ominously, and just when he thought the darkness would claim them, a piercing scream pierced the air, shaking the very foundation of everything around them. What more could this cursed night unleash, and were they destined to join the shadows forever? Doug's heart raced, his breath coming in swift, panicked bursts as the echoes of the scream faded into an eerie silence. For a brief moment, it felt as though the world had held its breath along with him. The shadows paused, their swirling forms hesitating in the light cast by the Bible. Then came a soft whisper, like the voice of a lost child, beckoning him closer. Help, it crooned. Doug's pulse quickened, against the pulsating thrum of chaos threatening to break through. Do you hear that? He managed to ask, casting a worried glance at the woman. She nodded, her eyes wide, full of both fear and something deeper unknowing. Never listen to the whispers. They're luring you in. She urged, clutching his arm tightly. They'll pretend to be what you want, only to feast on your soul. But the pleading voice pulled at something inside him, a flicker of compassion battling against the rising dread. What if it's someone lost? He murmured, fighting to suppress the urge to approach the door. The walls felt as if they were closing in, the oppressive darkness growing thicker with each passing second. Stay focused. The woman's voice trembled. The shadows thrive on doubt. You open that door, and it could be the end of us. Pain shot through Doug's chest, a mixture of fear and heartache. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. The flickering light illuminated her determined expression and rendered the creeping darkness into grotesque shapes. Each wail that clawed at the edges of his sanity bore a truth he couldn't escape. He tightened his grip on the Bible, reciting the words again, this time louder and with more conviction. Each passage vibrated in the air as the shadows hissed and recoiled, but still, they twisted and convulsed, a grotesque dance of malignancy. See? She said, her voice a steadier force as the light expanded. Hold on to the truth. We can't let them in. Yet against their resolve, the shadows seemed to multiply, pushing harder against the barricade as a new cacophony erupted, a chorus of shrieks, cries, and taunts. Bile rose in Doug's throat, making it hard to breathe. Doug, the truth. She shouted, urgency flooding her tone. You need to realize your power. Believe in it. He could sense her desperation, and it penetrated through his fear. His fingers traced the pages of the Bible, and a weighty history flooded his mind, the beginnings, the battles fought against the night. He was not only fighting for himself but for something more. Purpose wrapped around him like a warm embrace. Together. He yelled, matching her energy. Together, we will push back the darkness. He met her gaze, and in that moment, something inside him ignited a burning defiance against the shadows. They invoked passages together, voices rising as one, creating a melody of hope that cut through the darkness. The shadows recoiled, wavering as they struggled against the light illuminating their twisted forms, but the screams grew louder, a siren call that burrowed into Doug's mind, threatening to pull him under. Open the door. A voice howled, echoing with familiar tones, wrapping around his heart like a vice. Who is that? He gasped, confusion and sorrow crashing together. Don't listen. She shouted, panic igniting in her eyes as the shadows threatened to swallow them whole. He stood frozen, torn between the cries of the lost and the unyielding call to battle against the encroaching darkness. The woman's grip tightened on his arm, but Doug felt the tug of something unbreakable pulling him toward the door. What awaited him on the other side? Was surrendering to that voice a release or a danger he couldn't fathom? As the final echoes of the pleas bounced off the cabin walls, Doug felt the weight of a terrible choice, one that could trap him forever. The shadows pulsed around them, a living, breathing entity trapped in a perpetual state of torment. Doug's heart thundered in his chest as he surveyed the door, his mind a battlefield of emotion. Each flicker of light brought the whispers closer, and he could feel the pull deep in his gut, luring him like a moth to a flame. "Doug, please. Don't." The woman's voice cut through the haze, grounding him in the moment. But how could he ignore that voice? Its timbre carried a familiarity, a haunting resonance that echoed memories of laughter and warmth. He took a step forward, driven by instinct. Just as he reached for the door, the woman grabbed his wrist, her grip alarmingly strong. The fear in her eyes hit him harder than the shadows closing in around them. "Think of what you'll lose," she pleaded, desperation etched into her features. "You don't know what's waiting for you." But all Doug could think of was the voice, a fragment of a memory lost in time. "It could be someone I care about," he whispered, the reality of his longing spilling out like a fragile thread. "I have to find out, I have to know." "Doug!" she cried, fear wrapping around each syllable like a noose. But the shadows seemed to sense the crack forming in his resolve, and they surged forward, hungry, insatiable. "Step away!" he shouted, the sudden surge of energy bursting forth like a dam breaking. A piercing shriek erupted from the shadows, a cacophony of rage that threatened to drown him. His voice found a strength he didn't know he possessed. "Get back!" As he called upon the words in the Bible, rays of light streamed from its pages, pushing back against the darkness encroaching around them. With the fervor of desperation, he recited the verses louder, focusing on the warmth spreading through his palms, illuminating the cabin and cutting through the shadows. But with each heartbeat, the whispers only grew louder, weaving their sinister lullaby. "Open the door, join us," they slithered through the cracks of his resolve, pricking at him like needles. Pain and confusion danced together in his mind, battling the light he was trying to conjure. "Doug, hold on to me," the woman urged, indomitable. "We can't let them take you." Visions began to blend within him, the warmth of home, echoes of laughter, and everything he lost swirling through the darkness. An image of his younger sister flickered in his mind, her small hands clasping his, a smile brighter than the sun. Help, echoed her innocent voice, layered with anguish. "You have to find me, Doug." "No." His pulse quickened as dread consumed him. The shadow's howl distorted her voice, twisting it, warping the love into something vile. With each pulse of the shadows, his desperately held faith wavered. "Don't give in." She grabbed his shoulders, staring into his eyes, urgently shaking him back to reality. "You have the strength. Don't let them manipulate you." Fighting against the tide of despair, Doug forced himself to focus. He couldn't let the past define him. He couldn't let the shadows win. With a shuddering breath, he let the memories wash over him, feeling their presence settle within. "Together!" he shouted, rallying against the storm of shadows. The woman echoed him, their united voices harmonizing, creating a shield of light. The room erupted in energy, golden sparks illuminating the corners of the room where dark tendrils lurked, and then, just as quickly as they fought back, the shadows screamed as one, a primal noise that shook the very foundation of the cabin. "You will regret this." They roared, the anger and frustration surging, battling against the fierce light that in that moment of blinding brightness, the door shook violently, rattling against its frame. He could hear the muffled plea from the other side, powerful and relentless. "Let me in, Doug. You know it's me." A choice loomed before him, heavy and insurmountable. What if it was a trap? What if letting that voice in cost him everything? As the shadows recoiled and the light shone their way, Doug felt the weight of a dire decision crashing over him once again. Could he trust his heart? Or was he opening the door to his own annihilation? The storm raged around them, but a faint whisper, close to his ear, cut through the chaos. "Choose wisely, for once the door opens, there's no going back." What lay beyond that door? Did he dare risk it all for the fleeting hope of love? Would courage or despair lead the way? The shadows pulsed, swirling around Doug and the woman, teasing him with their chilling whispers. He could feel his heart pounding, an echo of the dread in the room. The door loomed before him, its wood aged and weathered, a passage to decisions that could alter everything. Doug! Focus on me. The woman's voice sliced through the mounting tension. Her grasp tightened around his wrist, anchoring him. You don't have to do this alone. We can face this together. The anger of the shadows churned behind them, so thick it felt like a malevolent fog. Open the door. Let us take you. They hissed, their words like ice piercing through Doug's resolve. Leave her and join us. He fought the allure of the voice from outside, teetering between desire and fear. He took a deep breath, the scent of damp wood and decay overwhelming. What if it is her? He murmured, uncertainty creeping in. No. She shook him slightly, snapping him back to the present. It might not be who you think it is. It could be another trap. They are deceitful, remember? Images flickered in his mind. His sister, her laughter, her innocent pleas. You have to find me, Doug. No. He screamed again, rage intertwining with sorrow. That voice, twisted by time and fate, was trying to warp itself into an affectionate recollection, pulling at the strings of his heart like a puppeteer. The shadows surged forward again, tendrils of darkness reaching for him. He grasped the Bible tightly, feeling the cool leather beneath his fingers. The words, once a lifeline, began to feel like a weight, a burden he feared he might not be able to carry any longer. Doug! The woman's voice cracked, the desperation palpable. We can't let them take you. You're stronger than this. Remember who you are. With every ounce of defiance, he muttered words of light, calling upon ancient verses. Light surged from the pages, a radiant barrier against the tormenting dark. The grip of despair tightened further as shadows slithered, taking shape of those he lost. Each one twisted into mocking versions of memories that plagued him. Choose wisely, the whisper said again, slick and seductive. You could own your happiness again. Just step through the door. The woman's gaze was steady, fierce. Listen to me. The happiness you seek won't be waiting on the other side, it's inside you. You can reclaim it right here. A spine-chilling scream echoed through the shadows, a sound that vibrated in his bones. Yet, amidst that cacophony, Doug felt a flicker of something familiar. The warmth of his sister's smile, her touch. Every loving moment swept through him like a tide. He had fought through so much. He couldn't let them erase that, but just as Doug summoned the resolve to refuse the shadows, a chilling silence fell over the cabin. It was suffocating, a moment where the world seemed to pause, palpable tension hanging in the air. The door shook violently again, more forceful this time, wood splintering at its edges. Let me in. Do it. The voice came, urgent, familiar, leaving no doubt in his mind. Each pulse of his heart echoed a question: did he trust the shadows or choose to fight? The woman's grip tightened, reaffirming her unwavering presence. Now! She shouted, her voice a beacon against the looming storm. Together, Doug! We have to make our stand now. He hesitated, gaze shifting between the door and the determined woman beside him. What if this was his last chance to discover what lay beyond? But at what cost? The room trembled, shadows rearing back in palpable fury. Open it! They demanded again, voices serrated with rage, but there was one thing Doug knew deeply: once he made his choice, there would be no turning back. With the tension taut, he felt that this moment could either save him or destroy him. What do I do? He whispered in torment, the weight of a universe pressing down on his shoulders. The shadows, closing in fast, filled the room with a deafening roar. Would he dare take the leap? Or let the shadows sweep him into the abyss? Time ticked away, an arrow pointing toward an undefined fate. The answer lay just beyond that door, but was it worth the risk? A decision was brewing, and it was about to explode. What would he choose? Unbearable hope or suffocating despair? But in that moment of paralyzing choice, one question emerged, rising above the chaos: What was hidden beyond the veil of shadows, waiting to be uncovered? Doug felt the walls of the cabin breathing. The wood creaked ominously under the pressure, as if the entire structure was alive, a silent witness to his decision. Shadows swirled around him, their whispers growing louder, turning into a maddening cacophony. Join us. Find peace. She's just a distraction. His heart thundered in his chest, drowning out the sinister hymns of darkness wrapping around his mind. No, not again, he muttered. He had fought too hard to succumb to this. The woman's intense gaze anchored him, like a lifeline tossed into a tempest. Doug! Make your choice. Her voice, infused with urgency, cut through the noise. Trust your instincts. You know what's right. He could still feel his sister's warmth on his skin, her laughter echoing in the hollows of his heart, blending with the anguish and confusion from the shadows. The memories warred inside him, twisting like competing vines, pleasant and dark. He drowned in indecision. What if they're telling the truth? The thought flickered briefly, a siren's call, before being drowned out by a wave of resistance. This is your last chance. Screamed the voices, enraged whispers merging into a single word of madness. Panic constricted his throat. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block out the onslaught, but the memories rushed back in, relentless. Images of his sister flashed before him, her smiling face, the way the sun caught her hair. She would tease him for being afraid of the dark when they were little. You're stronger than that, Doug. She'd say, puffing up her tiny chest. The assaulting shadows began to twist those memories, changing them, morphing the warmth into something cold and unrecognizable. You don't need her. The shadows cackled. You could be happy with us. No more pain, Doug. Remember how she left. They hissed, and Doug staggered back as their words cut through him like ice. The regret, the guilt, the real memories tangled in the lies, each accusation a weighted chain attempting to pull him under. Yes, she wasn't there anymore, and the ghosts of lost chances haunted him. Focus. The woman was shouting now, shaking his shoulders as if to wake him from a daze. It's manipulation. This is a lie. Don't let them twist your love into despair. He opened his eyes, staring into the fire of her determination. She believed in him. She had always believed in him, even when he struggled to believe in himself. The shadows thrashed around them, and the air stank of decay and despair. Open the door. Came the screams again, desperate and shrill. The splintering wood yielded to their fury, the door vibrating under the relentless pounding. Doug's decision crystallized in that brief, silent moment. With a deep breath, he stepped forward, forcing his hand toward the door. I'm sorry, he whispered, words meant for the shadows, and perhaps for himself. He felt his muscles tighten, every fiber of his being tensed at the thought of stepping into that darkness. But the woman pulled him back, her eyes wide. No. We can't give in to them. This isn't the way. Something inside Doug snapped as he looked back at her, the depths of the shadows swirling with sickening glee. What if I need to? The question rolled off his tongue, disbelief pooling inside, his instincts battling with a fear that threatened to consume him. No. She screamed. You are not alone in this. In that split second, as the shadows lunged forward, he saw something, a flicker of light beyond the door, a glimmer that didn't belong to the darkness. It beckoned to him, a fragment of hope amid the chaos. Doug! The urgency in her voice reverberated through him, igniting a spark. Fight for what you love. Fight for us. He hesitated again, caught between the past and the unknown, between the shadows and the light. Heart racing, he faced the door once more. Behind him, the shadows surged closer, hungry for his decision. What lay behind that door? Was it salvation or obliteration? Seconds felt like hours, and as his heart threatened to burst, time hung in the balance. Would he embrace the shadows shrouded in whispers, or step into the light that dared to defy fate itself? Before he could process, before he could retreat, he felt a rush, the force of shadows and memories colliding. With a final surge of will, he shouted, "No. I choose truth." And as he lunged, a wild mix of fear and determination, the world around him erupted into chaos. But one question lingered like a haunting echo: would he be able to survive the truth that awaited on the other side? Doug's heart raced as he barreled toward the door, a fierce battle raging in his mind and soul. The air crackled with tension, shadows swirling around him like vipers eager to strike. He felt the pull of the whispered lies trying to drown out his voice, the seductive call of the shadows wrapping around him like a vice, but he couldn't let them take him. With every ounce of strength he pulled from deep within, Doug flung open the cabin door, thrusting himself into the unknown. A blinding light erupted around him, cutting through the darkness like a knife. He stumbled forward, arms shielded against the brilliant glare, believing he might finally confront the truth that awaited him, no matter the cost. As his eyes adjusted, the chaos around him transformed. The woods were gone, replaced by a vast expanse of radiant light. Colors washed over him, golds, blues, and greens blending into an unbelievable tapestry, each hue pulsing with life and energy. The oppressive weight of the shadows lifted, replaced with an overwhelming clarity that surged through his veins, intoxicating and warm. But there, shimmering on the edge of his vision, the shadows tried to sneak back in, their forms distorted and grotesque. He could hear their wails the moment he set foot into this new realm, their lamentations tightening around him, trying to pull him back. "Doug!" The woman's voice broke through, steady and determined. She had followed him. "Stand your ground. This is where we reclaim what we lost." He grabbed her hand, feeling her unwavering grip steadied him against the encroaching darkness. With her by his side, he realized he was not alone. It was a moment that breathed hope into the marrow of his bones. He turned toward the light, feeling it wrap around him as if it were a blanket, soft and inviting. "The truth can set you free, but only if you're brave enough to face it," she urged, her presence radiating strength. Doug took a deep breath, steeling himself. "Together," he said, a united front against the shadows continued to claw at the edges of their new world. He could still hear echoes of fraudulent whispers, but they no longer held power over him. "We choose to embrace the light," he shouted, his voice ringing out with conviction. Each word sent tremors through the shadows, causing them to writhe and distort. The call of the darkness changed, the anger and bitterness morphed into confusion as they struggled against the power of Doug's declaration. "Don't let them drown you. Trust your heart." The woman shouted in response, her pure determination mingling with the warmth of the faded daylight. For a heartbeat, it felt as if the world held its breath. The shadows shrieked, the sound a sinister crescendo, a warning, a promise, a threat. But Doug, with the woman's hand firmly clasped in his, felt a surge of strength he never knew he possessed. That he began to recite the verses from the Bible, firm and strong, the words tumbling out of him with a defiant ferocity. Each syllable burned bright, illuminating the path ahead and shattering the oppressive darkness that clung to their heels. "No more," he cried, the light intensifying. "We will not be afraid." The shadows writhed and twisted, clawing at the edges of their retreating forms, screams merging into one anguished wail. With every word spoken, the flashes of light grew brighter, pushing relentlessly against the encroaching horror. And finally, with one last powerful incantation, the shadows recoiled in horror, retreating into the fathomless depths from which they had come. As the shadows dissipated, Doug felt a wave of relief rush over him, like cool water cascading over burning skin. The air sparkled with possibilities, and he and the woman stood in a world teeming with vibrancy and life. The anguish and despair faded, replaced by clarity and newfound understanding. He turned to her, the chaos of despair now an echo in the distance. "We did it," he said, breathless. She smiled, that fierce look of determination now softening into something brighter, something they both truly deserved. "Yes," she affirmed. "Together. We reclaimed our truth and our light." In that moment, Doug knew deep down that they had not only faced the shadows but had also embraced the light within them. Life would never be the same, but they had forged a bond of hope, ready to navigate the world beyond those woods together. As they stepped forward, the horizon shimmered with promise, bearing the marks of a new beginning. Together, they would face whatever came next, hand in hand, knowing they had the strength to overcome. And while the shadows may linger as distant memories, Doug had finally learned that true courage meant walking toward the light. But before this epic journey ends, there's something huge you need to do right now. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will give you chills. Smash that like button now. It's the moment to show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. I want to hear from you, and listen closely. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand just how important it is to support the channel through these actions.